Hi everyone, welcome to the March Move Experts webinar. Today we'll be talking about the Move and Exchange curriculum and how you can use the Move and Exchange values within your local dance outreach and international dance service down here in Panama. So for those of you who don't know me, for those of you who are watching at home, my name is Adele Switzer. I'm the Panama Fellow here at Movement Exchange. I graduated with my BFA in dance from Florida State University with minors in bio and chem. And yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you all today about the MoveX curriculum. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Oh, let me do one thing. Cool. Okay. All right. Can you guys see this okay? Mm-hmm. The presentation? Yay. Yes. Okay. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about the MoveX curriculum. So I want to start off by kind of just brainstorming a little bit about why dance. There's plenty of things we can teach, share, explore, exchange with the people who we work with both in our domestic communities and abroad. But why do we dance? Why do we dance with people? What value do you think this serves, dancing? Does anyone want to give it a go to start?
It's fun to do.
It is fun to do, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's one of those things that kind of just, you can see it in this picture right here with this girl, right? It's one of those things that kind of just puts a smile on your face. Anything else?
I think it's also something that like everybody can connect with, because it doesn't really matter like where you come from. You've had like at least some sort of experience with it, unless it's even it's just like listening to music and then like dancing along. I think it's something that everybody has a potential to connect to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. The only instrument you need for dance is your body, and everyone has a body to move to some sort of capacity. So like you're saying, anyone can dance. You don't have to be, prima ballerina, or, you don't have to have an insane amount of training. If you want to dance, you can. And it's one of those like kinesthetic things that really, connects to so many different people. Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts on this? I can't see if Annie has typed anything.
Annie said that dancing is a form of communication that doesn't require words, so it can cross language barriers.
Yeah, nice, Annie. Yeah, that's exactly it. So, dance is that nonverbal form of communication that, you don't have to talk to a person to be able to dance and move with them. I think a lot of people who go on the exchanges feel this way because, when we go on these exchanges, a lot of people don't speak any Spanish whatsoever, and they, try to talk to these kids, and the way that they communicate is through dance. So it really is that nonverbal form of communication that connects people across those language boundaries. On top of like language boundaries, it kind of goes through and like doesn't take into account social or cultural boundaries as well, right? Because you can dance with anyone. It doesn't matter what your background is. Yeah, so dance is one of those universal things that anyone can do and always brings a smile to some people's faces. When you've got a big group of people dancing, it's going to change lives. It's going to make people feel connected to their own communities. It's going to make people feel more empowered. It's going to make them feel more confident in themselves. So it kind of serves across, in my opinion, one of the most amazing things about dance, and one of the most amazing capacities that I think we fulfill with dance as movement exchange is that we hit so many different levels, right? Because we hit the individual. We make the individual feel empowered and feel confident in themselves. Then we connect them to their community, right? So by dancing and moving together, you know, a group of kids is automatically going to feel connected to each other through that shared kinesthetic experience. On top of that, we hit that global cross-cultural understanding, right? Because if we, you know, whether, you know, we're going to the exchange in Panama and exchanging culture through there, or, you know, if you know salsa, or you know Bollywood, or another type of, you know, cultural dance, and you share that with people in your local community, that's also a form of cross-cultural understanding across global borders. So that's one of my favorite parts about, you know, why we use dance, because it hits that individual level, that community level, and that global level. Do you guys have any other last-minute thoughts on, you know, why dance?
One thing that I saw recently, because I think what you said reminded me of it, because you said how like your body is the only instrument that you need.
Yeah.
I think that like in a way people like might be able to perceive that as like limiting, because what if people don't have like a full facility, that like what if they have social or like handicaps? But I saw a really cool video of dancers with New York City Ballet did a workshop with kids with cerebral palsy, and there were kids that like have very little mobility, and kids that like are constantly in braces and they need their parents to like hold them up. And by the end of like the 4 sessions, like some of the kids were standing on their own and they were dancing and stuff. It was really cool to see, because all these kids that never get to do anything without like their parents holding them, or they never really like have opportunities to move around a lot. And they were, by the end of it, they were dancing and like performing for all the parents and stuff. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a great example, right? That, you know, you don't have to be fully capable of moving in every which way, direction, shape, or form. You know, if you want, like I said, if you want to dance, you can dance. And I think one of the beautiful things about like that story that you shared is, you know, those kids probably didn't think that they would ever dance, right? And, you know, maybe going through one class gave them the confidence to keep trying more. And by that last session, you know, they did more than they ever thought they could. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Anything else? Cool. Okay. So I kind of just want to go over the movement exchange values. So these are kind of what we try to instill in all of our programs, whether in the States or here in Panama. So the first is cross-cultural understanding. So that idea of, you know, creating global connections. Civic engagement, how are we serving the communities and staying active within. Social equality and inclusion, how are we making sure that everyone feels included and that there are no hierarchies in our work. Community empowerment, how are we empowering the community to be active, to be empowered, to be strong, rather than, you know, leaving something there that they can't necessarily use. We want to leave them with something that empowers them to do more. Creative expression. So you can see it on these girls' faces in this picture, right? So dance is that form of creative expression that a lot of kids, you know, might not get to explore very often. Global citizenship. How can we feel connected to the rest of the world? And then finally, sustainable dance education. How are we making sustainable impact? And with these, I think, you know, we can go into our dance classes with the mindset of we're going to teach a dance class. Or we can go into a dance class with the mindset of we're going to make a difference today. We're going to make somebody smile. We're going to make somebody feel empowered. We're going to make a community feel strengthened. We're going to make, you know, we're going to make a difference today in this dance class. And I think if you have that mindset, you approach the class in a really different way. And that brings me to this next question. What does it mean to be a dance diplomat? So movement exchange defines, this is a term that we throw around a lot. You know, you guys as members of movement exchange are dance diplomats. And what does that mean? You know, why are you called a dance diplomat? And so we kind of have two definitions. One is a person who uses their talent and passion for dance to influence positive social change. So we're going and sharing our love of dance to create some sort of social change in a positive way. The other definition is one who encourages others to dance to allow for cognitive, creative, and social growth. So not only are we using our talent and passion to influence positive change, but we're also encouraging others to use dance to enhance their cognitive, creative, and social growth. So dance can really, provide those ways for cognitive, creative, and social growth. So a couple of questions for you guys. How can we as dance diplomats facilitate the maximum amount of positive social impact during one class? So the question that I really want to ask here is what qualities do you need to, one, be an effective educator, but also to enact that positive social change? Is the question clear? Sorry. Any thoughts on what type of person, what type of teacher do you need to be to, effectively enact positive change?
I think just like speaking from the volunteering that I've done, that patience is really important, because a lot of the kids that I've worked with are really easily distracted and they're really easily like frustrated. So I think it's important to just like be patient and like work with them on the level that they're at.
Yes.
And not expect them to like get it right away, and like let them just, if they keep making the same mistake, maybe just let them make that mistake that day. And or if they have trouble with one thing, just like let it go that day, and then you can like work with them in the future on things, and so that they don't get like too frustrated with themselves or with the class in general. Because there was a kid that in one of the classes, he was just being really disruptive and really distracting. And at the end, the teacher asked me if I wanted him to not come to dance classes anymore. And I was like, no, definitely not, because he is obviously super energetic and super just like needs to have that like physical outlet. And eventually, like after a couple of classes, he got better. And so I think it's important to just like be open to where the people are that you're working with, and just try to be on their level and try to help them with where they are.
Yeah, I like that idea of patience, and I think it also kind of goes into the idea of like creating a balance within your class, which is something that's hard to do, because of course you want your students to, be as technically proficient as possible, but you also have to create that space and have that patience to let them, explore on their own. So it's almost like that, you have to learn your lessons on your own, right? So if you keep doing something wrong, eventually you have to learn it for yourself to do it, right? But that takes a lot of patience from the teacher's side. So there's that fine balance of, how do we, really teach dance and teach what we love, but also make sure that we're still creating those sense of self-confidence. And I think a lot of that has to do with like the way, the personality of the teacher, right? If they're really excited and energetic and giving those corrections in a positive way, that can definitely help. Yeah, I think patience is a really necessary quality to have to be an effective educator. What else?
Annie added something. She said that an effective teacher needs to take the initiative and to not be daunted.
And needs to what?
Needs to take the initiative and not be daunted.
Right. Great. Yes, absolutely. So you have to be kind of assertive, right? Because you have to know what you want, and you have to, know how to get it. And again, there's always a balance, right? So you can't be too assertive or too, firm on what you want to accomplish, because you also have to take into consideration where the students are that day. If they're all really tired, you can push and push and push all you can, but there always has to be that balance. But you still have to fight for your side too, and you can't be intimidated. Especially, I know this happened to me a lot when I was teaching like preteens. Is that when they get into that kind of stage where like, oh, I don't care about you, I don't care about dancing, I just want to be cool, right? And then they're kind of mean to you. This always happened to me. They were just so mean to me. And you gotta stick up for yourself, right? And you gotta be strong and firm with, why you're there. So that's a really great one too. Yeah, thanks, Annie. A couple other ones that I thought, and they all relate, I think. But you have to be compassionate, communicative, energetic, motivational, encouraging, knowledgeable, relatable, and creative. And we'll kind of go through this a little bit more as we go on and how those play a role. But, there's a lot of different ways to be an effective educator, and it depends on, your personality and how you like to work. Yeah. And how can an educator, a teacher, help students learn effectively? What little things can you guys do in your class that helps students learn?
Giving them like little tips. Like whenever I first teach like second position, I tell them to think of them holding a beach ball, and that seems to make it a little easier for them to learn.
Yeah, that's great. So little tips. Also, imagery is exactly what you said. Imagery is a great way to help students, especially if they're visual learners, help them visualize what they're supposed to do. So using that imagery and also, little tips and pointers for how to accomplish what they want to do. Yeah, we'll talk on that, I think, a little bit later as well. But that's a really great one. I like to do that one.
My major is actually dance pedagogy, so I'm taking a teaching analysis class right now. We were talking a lot lately about like how to engage your students, and we've been talking about how it's important to like find a balance between, we're talking about this in like a very like classical ballet context, but I think it applies here too, about how it's important to stress like technical understanding so that they don't injure themselves and that they like progress in a positive and constructive way that's going to make them good, proficient technically, but also making sure that it's still exciting for them and entertaining for them. It's something that they're going to look forward to, and not it's not like overly difficult, so they're not constantly like technically challenged, but also having things that they like, that they enjoy, and that you can have them like have things that they will look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to make it enjoyable. I know we've all had those teachers that we just, we might love the subject, whether it's a dance class or not. We love the subject. Say we love ballet, but we just have that teacher who we just hate. We don't want to go, and it's not that we don't like what we're doing. It's how we're doing it. And it's hard because you can't always please everyone, and there's always a really fine line between pushing too much and not, and keeping it fun and exciting. So I think there's a big artistry to finding that balance between, making sure that the students are motivated and excited, but also progressively pushing them forward. Yeah, I think part of that is like keeping things interesting, right? Always developing new material. If you teach a pas de bourrée, for example, you can learn it backside, front. Okay, great. Now let's add the arms. We do it with the arms. We do it with the arms. Now, once they got the step, put it into a different context. Put it into a combination. Do it turning. So it's always, how can we, maybe they need more practice with a pas de bourrée, but we don't want to keep doing just your simple boring pot of bourrée. So how do we always, kind of put a new twist on something? I think that's, kind of plays a role in that as well. Some other ones that I have are, always keeping a mix between group and personal connections. So yeah, like definitely address the group with corrections that you think everyone needs to make, but also making sure that you're showing your students that you're looking at them individually as well. So make sure you call on a student each class, or make sure that you're giving each student corrections at least once per class, so that they know that you're at least putting a little bit of time and energy into their own individual development. I think is really, really helpful. Then also making sure that your plan progresses naturally, right? So kind of thinking about the progression of your classes over time and how you want the students to develop new skills. Because you can't go, from A to Z right away. You kind of have to go through the whole alphabet to get to Z. Also making sure that your class is well paced, I think kind of goes into what we were talking about before, is that if your class is too fast or too slow, your students are going to get really bored or like overwhelmed. So you have to make sure your class is well paced. Make sure that you always respect your students. This is kind of an obvious one, and I don't think anyone in movement exchange would have this problem just because of the people we have on board. But make sure that you're always respecting your students. You show that you care about them and respect their ideas and mindsets. This is one that I always have problems with, but don't spend this. You can probably tell by this, but don't spend too much time talking. A lot of teachers, I know I always do this, I get so excited about explaining something, and then I'm like, oh wait, you guys actually have to practice it now. So let the dancers dance. Any other thoughts before we move on?
One thing that kind of went along with your corrections idea is that I think it's really important to because from the classes that I've taken with lesson planning and constructing a class, I kind of go in with things like, okay, they're going to find this difficult and this is a way to explain it. I think it's really important to think, because we're a lot more experienced than our students are going to be. So it's important to think about different ways that they might struggle with it, because so the simplest things I've had so much difficulty teaching. I don't know why, but pivot turns are so difficult for 8-year-olds. They cannot grasp the concept. So you've spent so much time figuring out different ways to explain it and trying to tell them. It's been so difficult. Every time we have a new kid in the class, they just can't grasp it. But I think it's important to try to approach different new steps in different ways to try to cover different mindsets that each kid might have, so that they all understand what you're talking about. All understand what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny because I know, we're all kind of in varying degrees of, how much time we've spent dancing, but, I've been dancing since I was 2, so a lot of things just come naturally to me now, and I'm sure you might feel the same way with pivot turns, that you don't think that they're hard, and then you're like, oh, I have no idea how to explain this. So you're right, you kind of have to break it down, take a step back, think, if I've never done this step before, what do I need to do in order to make it happen? So yeah, that's so true. Students think in different ways, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but everyone has a different way of learning and a way of processing. So you as an educator have to think about those different ways that people's minds work in order to teach a step, because one way of explaining it might work for you really well, but not well for one student. And one way of, explaining it to one student wouldn't work for another. So there's always has to be different ways. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so this brings us to our next point perfectly. Remember that every student that you teach is different and learns in a different way. We all come from different backgrounds. We all, have a favorite subject in school. We all, grew up in different environments, and that we also have different genes, and all of that creates some sort of different learning style within us. So a couple of different ones is visual or, spatial, oral, verbal, physical, logical, social, and solitary. So these are all kind of different learning techniques and different learning styles that students might have. And you as a teacher, you might like to focus on a visual learning style or a purely physical. You also have to understand that some people might process a lot better, if you do it with music, or if you explain it really well, or if you use imagery, or you just need to do it 5,000 times. And do they work like really logically? Do they work well with a lot of people? Do they work well alone? So there's so many different ways that you can go about teaching, and so many different styles of teaching that work well for some learning styles and don't for others. So I just want to encourage you guys, that's exactly what Erin was saying, you always have to kind of be aware that every student you teach is different and learns in a different way. So you might have to change your outlook or the way that you're explaining something in order to suit their needs as well. So on top of that, child development is something that definitely plays a role, especially, because we're teaching dance, which is a connection of, your physical, cognitive, and social skills. So child development is the scientific study of how children develop intellectually, physically, socially, and emotionally from conception through adolescence. It is the study of normal and abnormal development, learning disabilities, genetic and biological factors in development, and common mental and behavioral problems. Understanding childhood development is essential for all individuals who care for and teach children in order to meet their needs in the best possible way. So of course, dance plays a really big role in this. So the first one is, there's 3 domains of child development. The first one is physical development, so the process of body growth and development, as well as motor and brain development. It's a gradual gaining of control over large and small muscles. So this, has a really direct impact on dance, right? So, a 2-year-old can't do what an 18-year-old does just because of this physical development. So you have large muscle actions and you have small muscle actions. Those larger muscle actions are like sitting, crawling, walking, running, throwing. Those smaller muscle actions are holding, pinching, flexing. So there's kind of like a wide variety and range of those physical movements. And every kind of stage of physical development allows for different types of actions. And we'll see this a little bit later, what the different age ranges are. The next is cognitive development. So cognitive development is the process of learning to think and reason and the ability to make sense of the world. Cognitive development involves the ways that growth and change, I think I might have typed on here, and change in intellectual capabilities can influence a person's behavior. So along with that, comes problem solving, decision making, memory, language development. So language development plays an interesting role into our exchanges because, when we're working with some of the younger students, they don't really understand that their teachers don't understand the words that are coming out of their mouth. They don't understand that different languages exist and that communication is blurred. Memory plays a really big role when you're trying to remember what the heck step comes next, right? You can't throw a crazy long combination at a 2-year-old. There's no way they're going to remember it. Decision making. I think a lot of this has to do with creativity, right? So I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to stick with what I'm going to do. Problem solving. Okay, something's not working. What do I have to do to fix it? Then lastly is this idea of social/emotional development. So this is the process of children getting to know and value the people in their lives. It involves building and maintaining relationships, getting along with other children and adults, initiating and responding to conversation, and expressing one's needs and ideas. It involves children's self-awareness and self-concept, the way in which individuals interact with others and their social relationships grow, change, and remain stable over the course of life. So this has to do with, how is a teacher or a student relating to another student in their class? How is the student relating to their family members? How is the student relating to you as a teacher? And I think a lot of this, has to play a big role in, that idea of like self-concept and self-awareness within dance. But also, how are we creating a community within our dance class? Because those children, they have to relate to each other in some sort of way. And the social/emotional development aspect of this plays a really big role. So there's a couple like developmental milestones, and you have to realize that, when you were 2, you couldn't do what you can do now. So physical milestones, and this is not, the list goes on and on and on for each one of these, so these are just like really short examples. Physical milestones, by 18 months, they can walk alone and they can pull on objects. By 5 years old, they can stand up now, they can walk around, they can stand on one foot, they can hop and skip, so their motor skills are slowly becoming more and more controlled. By 12-year-olds, they've got that growth spurt going on, puberty, they look a little out of proportion. Yeah, they can do a lot more complex things, but their body might still be getting used to the new growth, and some things might seem a little bit uncoordinated. Then once you get up a little bit, you feel more coordinated, how your body moves, and you're good to go. Cognitive milestones. So by 18 months, you point to get attention. Like, you might not be able to talk very well, but you can point to what you want. You know how to use tools. So whether that's, opening a book or pressing a button or using a fork or a spoon or something like that. By 5 years old, you understand shapes and you can count. By 12 years old, this is when you start to, strive for success. You want to accomplish things. And you want to form your own opinions. And sometimes they're very, very strong opinions. Then social emotional milestones. So by 18 months, likes to play, might have temper tantrums. By 5 years old, you want to please your friends. You want to, show independence, at least a little bit. And then by 12 years old, you're a little bit more sensitive to criticism. You're more self-aware. You understand that, people around you are looking at you and, judging you in good and sometimes bad ways. So you're really self-aware of that. And, your perception goes a little bit more inwards. So as dancers, as teachers, because dance is heavily influenced by all 3 of these developmental areas, as dancers, as educators, we really have to be mindful of, where our students are on these spectrums. So this is a very small list of what those developmental milestones are. But, you've been at this age. I'm sure you have students who are, different ages. So go back and think a little bit. Think about what a 3-year-old might be able to do versus a 15-year-old. And then on top of this, in our curriculum handbook, which is on our website under our chapter resources, on that curriculum handbook, there's a bunch more from this. So you can kind of go in there and see, oh, I don't really know what a 5-year-old can do. There'll be a little bit more of a description in there. Do you guys have any comments on, how development plays a role?
I don't think so.
No? Cool. Okay, going on. So now getting more into this classroom management. You've got a group of 30 crazy kids. What do you do to keep your class from going too crazy? And these are some of the suggestions that we use down here in Panama with our Panama instructors, as well as, we talk about these during our exchanges. But of course, there's plenty of other classroom management ideas, but these are just some that we like to focus on. The very first thing is have all students take off their shoes. If conditions permit, of course. If you're like in a place where there might be glass on the ground, don't take their shoes off. But the idea is that, if they take their shoes off before class, they understand that they're going into a dance class, right? So You know, you don't take your shoes off to play soccer. You don't take your shoes off to sit down in a regular classroom. You take your shoes off to start a dance class. So this is kind of like a ritual idea, and to get the children, the kids, your students kind of in that mindset of, okay, I'm going into a dance studio. Kimberly and I were talking today about, you know, if you're in a leotard and tights going into your class, you know, you're already in that mindset of, hey, I have to be, you know, a good ballerina. I can't talk during class. I have to be disciplined. But for a lot of the kids that we teach, you know, it's an aftercare program, or, you know, they don't have dance clothes. So a lot of times they're in jeans. So you have to have some sort of like change that gets them ready to go into this dance class. Another one that we do is have students line up outside of the classroom or begin sitting in a circle to center everyone's attention. So if you always start in that one way of, you know, if you start in a circle, you know, that's the start of your class. Everyone's together, you can see each other, you're united. That's how you start your dance class. On top of that, students shouldn't be permitted to leave the bathroom, leave for the bathroom or go for water breaks unless it's an absolute emergency. I'm sure you guys agree with this one, that it's a, you know, a lot of times kids just, you know, want to say they want to go to the bathroom just because they don't want to take your class and they just want to go walk away for 5 minutes. But you know, you have to make sure that it's an emergency so that your class isn't disrupted, so that your students don't miss anything important. Then, of course, no talking over the teacher. That's a big one. You know, you have to assert your authority here a little bit. Then your students shouldn't be disrupting the classroom in any way or distracting other students. Yeah, that one's pretty self-explanatory. And then this one's pretty important. Don't allow students to say, I can't. It's not a matter of I can't. It's, you know, if they're saying I can't, it's probably that I don't want to. But if they, you know, if they try it, they might surprise themselves. They might be able to do more than they thought they could do. And so, you know, you always want to be as encouraging as possible during your classes and, you know, reminding your students that they can. You know, they can do it. They just have to put a little bit of mind and brain power into it. Do you guys have any other like classroom suggestions that you guys use or classroom management tools that you guys use during your classes to, you know, keep everyone focused?
At one of the workshops that I run, we always, like, if they're getting like out of hand, I'll say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. And then they have to say 1, 2, eyes on you. And it kind of just refocuses them.
Yeah. Yeah, we use something like that here in Panama a lot. It's if you can hear me, clap once. Everyone claps once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So it's like that. It's, you know, both of those examples, the one that you mentioned and the clapping one, are something that students, you know, it's very like action oriented, right? So if they hear something, there's an action attached onto it that refocuses their energy and their attention to you. So like for yours, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, they have to say 1, 2, eyes on you. And then they probably look at you because they're saying eyes on you. Yeah, exactly. And then if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. You can hear me, clap 3 times. You know, it's very action oriented. They have to clap. They have to stop talking to, you know, listen and clap at the right time. So both of those are really great examples for how to, you know, get the energy back focused on the teacher. That's great. I'm glad you used that one. I like that. Any other suggestions?
One of the places that we volunteer, we're usually in their cafeteria, and most of the cafeteria is a white flooring, but then there's squares of blue. So everybody has their own square that they dance in. And like they'll move out of their square, but like when we're starting something new, everybody goes to their square, so they aren't going to smack their friends or like pull your friend's hair and stuff. So like everybody has their own space to dance in. So that's one of our ways to like get everybody to calm down and focus on what we're going to do next. Everybody just goes to their squares so that nobody's like messing with your neighbor.
Yeah, that's a fun one and really necessary once kids, like a lot of kids, you know, don't have even adolescents, like 15-year-olds, they don't really have spatial awareness unless you've been in a dance class for a while. So it's a really great way to not only, get them refocused and like, okay, where's my square? But it's also a great way to teach them about spatial arrangement, because if they were all sardined in one place and not using their space, they wouldn't be able to move. So that's a really great way to kind of combine two different things of like focusing, but also, being aware of your space and, how you are placed in relation to other people. That's a great one.
Annie added something too. She said that for dances that involve props, like the one they did with the Mongolian chopsticks, that they had to make sure that they defined the rules clearly before giving them the props.
Yes. Yeah, those were so fun. Yeah, that's a great one. So especially if you're using sticks with kids, you have to be very, very clear that they're not allowed to hit each other with them, right? Because crazy kids like to do that stuff. So that's a really, really great one for, if you want to use something fun. And you have to put kind of like a punishment on it. Like if you hit another kid or if you break it, we're not going to do it ever again. Being really clear with rules. And I think a lot of that, yes, it has to do with the props, but also kind of bigger picture with it is that you have to establish your rules like at the beginning of your time with the kids, right? So if you go like halfway through your session with them and you're like, okay, new rules, now we have rules for our class, it's not really going to work. So you have to establish those rules as clearly as possible at the beginning of your time with the students so that everyone's on the same page. So that's very, very clear for props and you bring something new into the scenario, but it also has to do with, setting that ritual and setting those rules for your class so your students respect what you're doing with them. Yeah, anything else? Cool. Lesson planning and curriculum guidelines. So there's a bunch of ways that, you can set up your lesson plan to kind of facilitate what you want to teach. So some of this is straight out from the curriculum handbook, so I definitely encourage you guys to read it and go back to it after this for a little bit of a further explanation. But I think one of the most important things is define the ultimate goal and determine the skills necessary to reach that goal. So, if you want to teach them a pot of array, right, which maybe shouldn't be your ultimate goal, but it's a goal. But, what do you have to do to help them reach that goal, right? You have to teach them the feet first. You have to make sure they know their right from their left. Then you have to get the steps slowly. Then you can get the steps a little bit faster. Then you can add the arms, right? So it's, you have to kind of take it step by step. Then another one is create a specific objective for each lesson. For example, students will demonstrate X through Y. So students will demonstrate that they've learned how to execute a pot of array by doing this combination, or students will demonstrate their creative artistry by improvising to this song. Something like that. So making sure that you have a specific objective and that you have like a means to do it or to demonstrate it. So this goes into what we were talking about a little bit before, is developing analogies and alternative explanations for your material. So realizing that, some students may be visual learners, some students might be spatial learners, some students might be, physical learners, kinesthetic learners. So you have to, adapt your material to be aware of that. Then be mindful of the pace of your class. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Be really cool that your class isn't going too fast or it's not going too slow. You kind of have to gauge that by how your students are progressing throughout the class. Incorporate exercises that test your students' knowledge of the material and require them to demonstrate what they've learned. This is a great one to make sure that your students are actually learning for themselves and not relying on you as instructors to get them through it. Especially, if you're teaching a long combination, give them a chance to do it on their own. You don't always have to do it with them. Maybe they keep messing up one part, but, if you keep doing it with them, they're always going to have that kind of crutch. So you kind of have to let them fly free, let them figure it out on their own a little bit. Find a balance of structure and flexibility within your class. Create an outline of activities, but also be willing to adjust your lesson plan based on your students' needs. So especially, I think it's easier the longer you work with a group of students, but if you're going into your first class with a group of students, you always have to be mindful that your entire lesson plan could go out the wall, right? Like you might have planned for something and your students are just like the exact opposite. They might be really incredible and you had no idea, or they might know nothing. So being aware that, you have to find this balance of structure and flexibility. This kind of goes back to the pace of the class, but look at the time you're set to teach and create a logical progression of activities and objectives. If you only have half an hour to teach, it's a really big difference between you have an hour and a half to teach, and you have to create your goals and the progression towards those goals based on that time frame. Then finally, understand what skills your students may already be familiar with and then build upon their base of knowledge. So, you kind of use that first or second class to gauge, where their skill sets might be, and then progress forward from there. If you're working with a group who might have already had a little bit of dance training, you have to be aware and understand that, you don't want to teach them the same things they already know, because it's going to be really boring, and you want to progress. So these are just some examples that we had. What other tools do you guys use, or ideas do you usually incorporate into your lesson plans? Anything else that you would add?
No. I think that is pretty much everything that we usually do.
Pretty solid.
I think Annie might need to add something now.
Oh, okay. Wait a second. There's definitely some other ones. I'm trying to think. What other ones may be helpful?
I know one thing.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah?
One thing that we do is kind of like more of a long-term goal that their teacher, like academic teacher too, reminds them of, is that we try to have a show at the end of the year. So we use that as kind of a motivation, like, okay guys, you have to make sure you really know this, because we're going to show your parents and your classmates and your teachers at the end of the year, and you want to look good, and you want to show off how much you've learned this year. So we kind of use that as a motivation as our class builds and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great motivator, right? Because you don't want to look bad on stage in front of your friends and family, and you want to show them, what you've learned. You want them to be proud of you. So I think that's a great way to, motivate people and get them excited. Especially, for a lot of the kids that we work with down here in Panama, and I'm sure a lot of the kids that you guys work with in the States, they've never been on a stage before. They've never performed in front of their parents or their families or their friends. So it's a really great way to get them excited about something too, and keep them kind of focused on what they want to accomplish. For sure.
Annie said that one thing that came up for us was that we actually tried to incorporate more teaching on cultural aspects to complement the style of dance we're teaching.
Yeah, cultural aspects. Yeah, so there's always, everyone comes from a different culture, and, sharing those cultures and sharing the history behind it too is really exciting. It's a great way to kind of promote that global understanding and cross-cultural understanding that is so important in dance. Everyone across the world dances, and we have to share that with the people that we're teaching. So, if you teach a salsa class, talk about the history, talk about where it comes from and why the moves are the way they are. If you teach, a capoeira class, where does it come from? A lot of the history plays a big role into that. And you'd be surprised, look into the history. A lot of our dance diplomats teach a jazz class sometimes, right? But jazz has a really interesting history too. So go back and, maybe think about, what are the cultural implications of the style that I'm teaching? That's great. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, yay. Okay. So, as you're creating lesson plans, I recommend, at least creating like some sort of lesson plan for your class, just so that you can, kind of keep on track with what you want to accomplish. So each lesson plan should include the following and maybe more if something else comes up. So a description of what you want to accomplish, or the dancer's interest. So teaching a jazz class, teaching a hip hop class, whatever that is. The theme. So what is your overall goal? What's going to be the emphasis of your class? What specific objectives do you want to accomplish during your class? Visual and performing arts standards, common core standards, skills targeted. So what skills are you going to work on during this class? There's one example in the curriculum handbook that talks about how you can use like a mirror and movement to show the way light reflects. So that talks about light reflection and how light waves work. So that kind of fits into a common core standards. I know I've read a lot of things that dancers use, or teachers use dance to help teach math. So what skills are you going to be working on during your class? Whether that's, it can be math and addition or whatever, but it could also be something, chaînés or pas de bourrées, that kind of thing. Vocabulary. So, there's a lot of specific dance terminology. What vocabulary do you need to make sure that your students know? Materials. Do you need any specific materials for your class? Any props? Make sure you have a boombox and some music. Then step-by-step procedure, your lesson outline. Okay, so these are all the things that you want to accomplish. How are you actually going to do it? What's your plan? What's your game plan? Then finally, an assessment. How are you going to make sure that you're assessing what your students learned? That goes back to, where is it? Yeah, it goes back to this one here. Incorporate exercises that test your students' knowledge of the material. So make sure that you're always, giving them a final, how'd they do today? Is there anything else that you guys would include in your lesson plan, or do you have any questions about this? Cool. I'm going to go on. So one of the things that we use a lot, or talk about a lot, is this idea of creative dance. Creative dance, I think, gets kind of like a bad stigma because it sounds like, oh, I'm going to go dance and be a leaf somewhere. And it's more than that, right? Because creative dance really, empowers individuals to use their brain in a different way. Empowers them to think about something in a different way and explore something that they've never explored before. So what is the goal of creative dance? And everyone can have their own definition. But I think the bare bones of it is to communicate through movement. So whether that's communicating your emotions of the day, communicating a story, telling a story through your body, through movement, telling your emotions, or, demonstrating how an animal or an object would move or react. Do you guys have any other ideas about what the goal of creative dance would be? This is kind of like bare bones minimum.
I think that's a better definition than I would have created.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? It's, creative dance is where you're using your creativity to express something. An expression is a form of communication, and we're doing it through movement. So when we're doing creative dance, it's really different from, doing set choreography. And the part of the individual that we aim to reach when doing this creative dance is the idea of, we're empowering the creator rather than the performer. So it's in more of an inward exploration than an outward exploration. So when you're engaging in creative dance, or you're, in communicating through movement, it's about what you're creating rather than what you're performing. And when you're creating a creative dance lesson in which you have to be creative, there's a couple of stages that you can go through. So the very first one is that you have to present an element. So present what type of creativity they're going to explore, what they're going to explore. Then second, give the children or the students an opportunity for experimentation. And then 3, require the children to use the element in a simple form. So first, present the element. Okay, we're gonna, if I were really excited about something, how would I move? So when you say a scenario like, we're gonna, go across the floor feeling really, really excited about something with a big smile on your face. Give the students an opportunity to explore that emotion. Then require the children to use the element in a simple form. So, maybe having them, improvise for a couple minutes about it or something like that. So it can be simple, but direct. And so this is a question for you guys. Why is the directive just dance the music any way you want not an appropriate lesson for beginners? What's kind of the issue or the problem that we would run into with telling somebody just dance the music any way you want? You guys have any thoughts on that?
One of the favorite games that we play sometimes is one of the places that we volunteer, the kids love to do freeze dance.
Yeah.
And I've found that you can't just play the music and tell them to dance, because some of the kids get really into it and they have fun, and you don't really they're not as shy and they won't be as afraid to dance. But then you'll have some kids that just like stand around and then just pace back and forth between their feet. But then if you tell them like, okay, this time we're gonna dance like you're a monkey, and then you let them dance, and then so for each time that we go through pausing the music, I try to give them a different, how you were talking about, give them a different element to replicate. And if you ever give them a chance to not do that, some kids will continue to dance and will be creative, but then other kids get really shy and they don't know what to do, and they think that they don't know how to dance. So I think that if they don't already have the vocabulary to know what to do, they just get shy and tell themselves that they don't know how to dance.
Yeah, for sure. It's that idea of there's no structure behind it, right? For a lot of kids who might not have a lot of dance experience, they don't know what the possibilities are yet. If you tell somebody to jump, there's so many different ways that you can jump. If you tell somebody to move, there's a lot of different ways to move, but it's almost too daunting, right? So it's that idea of, if your professor tells you to write an essay, you're like, what the hell am I supposed to write an essay about? What's my topic? How long does it have to be? Right? So it's kind of that idea you have to present some sort of structure in order for them to feel comfortable to explore. And within that, saying, okay, jump like a monkey or dance like a monkey, they explore new ways of moving that they didn't necessarily know before, that might be able to, come back out in a different way in another time. Yeah, that's exactly it. Any other thoughts? Yeah, so when, if you want to teach a creative dance class, which I think is a great way to get kids to explore their creativity and their confidence, just make sure that you're being creative within a structure, especially with little kids, honestly with any age group, is that you have to provide a little bit of structure in order to make people feel comfortable and interested in exploring that. So we're not going to do this right now because we're running out of time. But I wanted to go back through the MoveX values one more time, really take a look at them, and make you aware that in your dance classes you really, really can go through these values within your class. So whether that's doing a group piece together, right? We're adding some partnering work into your class, or getting kids to work together, or exploring their own self-confidence and exploring their creative expression, or teaching them, a different dance form that explores cross-cultural understanding or global citizenship. That there's a way to create these values or explore these values within a dance setting. So the next time that you go to teach one of your classes, maybe think back to one of these values and think about what age range you're working with, and think about, maybe what's 1 or 2 exercises you can throw into your dance class that explores these values. Within the curriculum handbook, there's a bunch of examples for each age group and each value. So go ahead and take a look at those if you're ever like, oh shoot, I really don't know what to teach my 7-year-olds today. Go through that handbook and see if anything sparks your interest, or it might spark another idea for you. So I want to finish up with this last idea of sustainability. So this is one of Movement Exchange's values that wasn't listed on this page, but was listed all the way at the beginning, is that we want to create sustainable impact with the work that we do. And I want to ask you guys, oops, my bad. Oh no, sorry. Okay, there it is, yay. Why is sustainability so important within your communities? What's the difference between providing a free dance class one time versus working with, a group of students for a long period of time? What added benefit can sustainability have on the students that you're working with?
You become a mentor to them and they almost start to look forward to it, which makes it easier to teach them.
Yeah. Yeah, you form a connection with your students, right? You become a mentor to them, you become a friend to them, you become a true teacher of so many things to them. And, the kids want to come back and see your face every week, every month. They get excited about it. And if you're excited about it and they're excited about it, and you form that real connection, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a lot easier to teach them because every party involved wants to be there and knows that, you as a teacher have a true interest in their personal well-being.
You can also see those students grow and improve a lot. Like if you're able to go somewhere like year after year, or even just like several weeks in a row, you can see like something maybe that they struggled with the first day, the first couple classes, that in like after a couple of weeks or a couple classes, they're like improving, and you can see their self-confidence grow, and they get even more excited about it when it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, you got cut off just a little bit at the end, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying, is that, you see growth within the students over time, whether that's, physical growth, a cognitive growth, a social growth, right? So you kind of, you become a part of their development. And whether that's, them learning a new type of dance move, or, being more confident in themselves. There's so many different areas in which these students can grow over time. And if you're working with them for a longer period of time, whether that's, 1 month or 3 years, you see growth in these kids. It's funny because, down here in Panama, we provide sustainable dance education, provide weekly classes at all of our partner locations. And those are taught by Panamanian instructors. So exactly what we were saying before is that, they're truly a mentor to these students. But on top of it, you get to see them grow over time. And one of the things that I think is really cool about the model that we have is that for returners, people who come back to Panama year after year on these exchanges, is that not only do they get to see the kids again, but they get to see how much they've improved and grown, because we still provide those sustainable dance education. So it kind of works in like a twofold. Yeah. Any other thoughts on why sustainability is important? I think one other thing that is really important is that if you're providing sustainable dance education, if you're providing weekly, monthly, classes and getting to work with a group of students over a long period of time, that not only are you, providing a change in the students, but you're also providing a change in the community, right? If 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids are suddenly like way more self-aware and self-confident, they're going to be more active members of their society, right? They're going to unite their community more, especially if you're working like with a group of kids, at the orphanages, for example. they're living with each other, but they don't necessarily identify as siblings. So how can you build a community within these kids? Or, you know, a group of kids in an aftercare program at school or whatever, you know, how are you creating a community between these people? And so I think, you know, it definitely does work on that individual and community level really, really well.
I didn't see this before, but that's exactly what Annie said. She said it creates a stable, positive, and safe community that promotes positive growth.
Yay! Yeah, Annie, we're on the same page. Thanks for reading that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really community-oriented, community building when we provide sustainable dance education. So that's, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why that sustainability is so important to what Movement Exchange does. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining on. And was that, Erin, were you reading all of Annie's comments?
Yeah.
Yay! Thanks for doing that, Annie. I'm glad you were still able to participate. And Alex, thanks for hopping on. I'm so glad that, you know, you were able to join us. It's always fun getting new faces on here. So I just want to encourage you guys, you know, as you continue with your local dance service, you know, think about how you really can create some sort of positive social change in there. So yeah, if you guys ever have any questions about curriculum or Movement Exchange, the values that we have, let me know. And be sure to look at the curriculum handbook for some more deets and all that good stuff. Do you guys have any last minute thoughts on all of this?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yay, thank you guys so much. Our next Move Experts webinar has yet to be determined, but we will keep you guys updated with all that good stuff. So thank you and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yay, see you guys. Thanks so much. Bye.